So we're going to talk about nutrition for heart health. So if you've been watching my Facebook Lives, you know that for American Heart Month, I decided to come live and give you some information about heart health to help you lead a heart healthy lifestyle. The first video was just on my personal experience with heart disease, surviving a heart attack 10 years ago. And the symptoms of a heart attack as well as risk factors. The second one, I focused more on exercise and stress and things that we have control over and can change to minimize our risk. And tonight, finally, my passion, we are talking food, nutrition for heart health. So I'm going to try to be brief. I could probably talk about this for 3 hours without taking a breath. So I'm going to do my best to keep it short for you guys tonight. Eating for a healthy heart. There's a lot of information out there, and the information I'm giving to you tonight is based on the research, the evidence we have. It is always changing, so new things are coming up as we learn more, and so that's always a challenge to keep up with the latest research. But this is on peer-reviewed journal articles, American Heart Association guidelines, information from the Framingham study, and the Mediterranean and DASH diets, and all of those wonderful ways that are heart healthy ways to eat. And so I'm going to give you 4 simple tips to eat for a healthy heart. So number 1, and if you are at home and you can grab some kind of food package with a food label, that might be helpful as we go through this tonight, just to have a label to look at. Or if you've got a bottle or a drink in your hand, that will do as well. So first of all, tip number 1, to eat for a healthy heart, add more fiber. Americans are horribly deficient in their fiber intake. I think the average intake is around 15 or so grams of fiber a day, and the recommendations range from about 25 to 38 grams of fiber a day. So many Americans are not eating enough fiber, and fiber is wonderful for heart health. Fiber, there's 2 types of fiber in food, soluble and insoluble. No food is just one type of fiber, although some have more of one type than the other, but any food with fiber will have both types of fiber. So don't get hung up on, does this food have more of the better fiber for my heart? Because all foods are going to help you get to your fiber targets. So the 2 types of fiber, one helps with regularity, providing bulk to our system to move things along, which is also important, but the other helps with heart health. And what it does is it basically grabs on to cholesterol in your system and pulls it out. So it helps to reduce your blood cholesterol, specifically your LDL or the bad cholesterol. So more fiber in the diet can help reduce your bad LDL cholesterol, which can help reduce your risk for heart disease. And it has a million other wonderful benefits as well. It helps you feel full longer and fill up faster. So if you're trying to manage your weight, more fiber can help you feel satisfied or satiated from your meals, which can help. And many of the foods with fiber are lower in calories, so that's a great bonus too for weight management. So that's why fiber is so beneficial for your heart health. So which foods have fiber is the next question. And the answer is fruits, vegetables, and whole grain foods. So fruits, the recommendation for most Americans is 2 to 3 servings of fruit for most of us a day. Now, I'll caution you that a serving is smaller than you might think it is. It's 1 cup of measured fruit, which is not that much. Or think of the small apple you get at Panera. That's a serving of fruit, not those big apples you get at the grocery store. Or a half of a banana is a serving of fruit. So a banana is most of the time a whole serving, 2 servings of fruit. So it's very easy to get your fruit recommendations. Many people that I talk to when I'm counseling are trying to watch their blood sugar, and they are afraid to eat fruit because of the sugar, and other people because sugar has gotten to be so demonized lately. And yeah, sugar is a concern. Added sugars, we'll get to that in a minute. But the sugar in fruit, nature has packaged fruit with fiber and with all these wonderful vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals, which help our health in millions of ways. The research is amazing. And because the sugar in fruit is packaged with fiber, it slows down how quickly that sugar gets into our bloodstream. And so it tends to raise our blood sugar slower than candy bars or soda because there's fiber in the fruit. So don't be afraid of fruit, unless of course you're sitting down to a whole bowl of like fruit cocktail and eating it all. Then we'll have a different conversation. But in general, try to add more fruit to your diet. Vegetables as well contain fiber. Now we know there are starchy and non-starchy vegetables. I would recommend more non-starchy vegetables because there are very few calories per bite. So it's easier to tell you the starchy veggies because there's tons of non-starchy. We know the starchy vegetables are corn, peas, potatoes, winter squash like butternut and pumpkin, legumes or beans, if you consider those a vegetable, which botanically I think they are, even though they're protein source nutritionally. So those are the starchy veggies. So pretty much anything else is non-starchy. So any of your greens, lettuce, tomatoes, carrots, celery, cucumbers, summer squash, cauliflower, broccoli, parsnips, I could go on and on. So those are the veggies to focus on. One great idea is to try to have maybe 4 to 5 colors on every plate. And if you stick to whole foods, you have to put vegetables on or fruits to get the colors. So that's a really good way to improve your heart health, to get 4 to 5 colors on your plate and build those colors with fruits and vegetables. The last food that has fiber is whole grains. And again, a lot of people stay away from carbohydrate foods and grains specifically. And yes, you want to reduce your white rice, white pasta, white bread, all of those refined grains, because what they do in the food manufacturing is actually strip away the fiber along with a lot of the nutrition in the wheat or whatever grain they're processing, and then they've got to add it back. So it's fortified, and that's why you see long ingredient lists on grain products if it has been stripped, refined, and then fortified, because they have to put all those vitamins and minerals back. So if you stick to the basics, whole foods, brown rice, whole wheat pasta, wheat bread, not multi-grain bread, because that can be a bunch of refined grains. It has to be whole grain. One trick is to look at your ingredients listing on your food labels and make sure whole comes before the grain. So whatever it is, whole wheat flour, whole durum semolina flour, if it's a pasta, any of those, if you see the word whole first, you're in business. Now, if you're looking at a food label, fiber, and I have my food labels over to the side here, so I'm kind of going to look off at my label. Fiber is going to be listed. It falls under the carbohydrates on your food label. And so you'll see carbohydrates and then you'll see fiber. Now, the fiber is already included in the total carbs. So if something says total carbs 20 grams, fiber 5 grams, that means that 5 of those 20 grams are fiber. You don't add them together. It's indented, which a lot of people don't notice because it's part of the total carbohydrates. So that's where you would look for fiber on your food packaging. More fiber is better. If you are trying to increase your fiber, next time you go to the store, go to your general choice of whole grain, whole bread, pasta, whatever you're eating, and look at the label and see how much fiber is in it. And try to find a brand that has a little bit more fiber. And that's a real easy way to up your fiber intake without changing how you're eating at all, just by looking for products with more fiber in them. So that's tip number 1. You want to increase your fiber. Tip number 2 for heart healthy eating is change up your fats. So there are a few different types of fats in foods, and some of them are really good for your heart health, and some of them not so good for your heart health. So the 2 types of fats that are not good for your heart health are saturated fat and trans fat. And the way I tell people to remember this is think of saturated fat saturates your heart with fat. We don't want a heart saturated with fats, so try to avoid that. And trans is the opposite of what you want. So saturated and trans, try to reduce those fats. The reason is they also raise your raise your LDL, your bad cholesterol, and they can also, trans fat can decrease your HDL or your good cholesterol. Now, if you didn't know it, your good cholesterol's job, so to say, is to take that bad cholesterol, pick it up, and take it out of your system back to the liver for processing. So high HDL is actually cardioprotective. It's good for your heart risk. because it's helping to bring down your LDL. So we want to avoid saturated and trans fats because they can reduce LDL and reduce HDL, reduce the good stuff, and it can increase the bad stuff. So that's not what we want. The fats that are amazing for your heart health are the unsaturated fats. And you're going to see these on a food label as polyunsaturated and monounsaturated. And that just refers to the number of chemical bonds. It's not really important for you to know all the chemistry, but the unsaturated fats are the ones that can bring your good cholesterol up. Beautiful. And bring your bad cholesterol down, which that swap will help bring your total cholesterol down. So when you look at, so fats are in animal foods. So saturated fat is found in animal products. So any of your meats, and when I say meats, I include poultry and fish, and anything that comes from those animals. So your dairy foods will also have saturated fat in them. Alternative dairy products may or may not, depending on the source of the milk when they make it. So if you can reduce, that's one reason that going meatless a couple nights a week can help reduce your heart disease risk, because it helps you bring down saturated fat. Now, if you're not ready for a meatless meal or some vegetarian options, you can just reduce your portion sizes. So put a little less meat on your plate and fill that space up with some vegetables. And you still get a full plate, but it's more heart healthy. And trans fats, saturated fats are also in bakery products. Trans fats can be in anything, honestly. It's added by food manufacturers. It's very rarely found in nature. It is something that was created to improve spreadability of products and increase shelf life of products. So it's added to tons of foods, everything from butters and salad dressings to breads and frozen dinners. It can be in any food product. So this is where it gets a little tricky. Well, before I say that, unsaturated fats are found mostly in vegetable products, nuts and seeds, and things like that. So avocado, olives, fatty fish, those are unsaturated fat sources. So when you're looking at your food label, again, you're going to see total fat as one of the lines on your food label, and underneath that, you are going to see at the very least saturated fat and trans fat. You may or may not see polyunsaturated or monounsaturated. As of right now, it's not required to be on the food label. But this is one place on the food label that you can actually just do simple math. So if you're looking at a label and it says total fat 10 grams and saturated fat 5 grams, trans fat 0, you know that 20 minus 5, the other 15 grams are unsaturated fat. So that would be a great heart healthy choice. You can also use the daily values, that percentage on the food label. A lot of people don't really know how to use that. And it may or may not be your specific percentage. It just depends how much you eat. They had to have a standard number to get a percent. But you can look for things that are 5% or less are going to be low. So if you see something that's 4% saturated fat, that's low in saturated fat. Or 20% or more is high. So if something has 25% of monounsaturated fat, that would be high in unsaturated fat, which you would want. And what the research shows us on these fats is that if you replace saturated and trans fats with unsaturated fats, it improves your heart health. It reduces your risk. So there may be some value just in adding unsaturated fats. Add a handful of nuts a day, have some guacamole with some carrots, so have some salmon for dinner. So there may be benefit to just adding, but they have a lot of calories because they're fats. So the idea is to swap it out. So if you would usually cook with a regular vegetable or soy oil, and you swapped that out for a canola oil or an avocado oil or a walnut oil, that would be a healthier swap. And it's that swap out that's important for reducing heart disease risk. So that is your unsaturated fats. Tip number 3 for heart health. So far we've got 1, increase your fiber, and 2, change out your fats. So tip number 3 is reduce your added sugars and salt. So here we go with the sugars. So yes, we have a bunch of research that shows us that added sugars in foods are not good for your health. I'm talking heart health, I'm talking cancer outcomes, I'm talking all kinds of negative health outcomes from a high intake of added sugars. So we want to reduce added sugars. Now again, this doesn't apply to fruit, the natural sugar in fruit, or the natural sugar lactose in dairy products, or maltose in some grains. But it does apply to added sugars in food. So how do you know, right? Right now, our food label does not break out added sugars. So if you look at a current food label, you're going to look under the carbohydrates line. And we've already talked about the first line under that is fiber, which you want to boost up. The next line under that will be sugars. And it's going to have a total number of grams. But it doesn't tell you if that's added or natural. So if you're looking at a cup of milk, for example, you're going to see round about 12 grams of sugar. It's all natural, but you have no way of knowing that. So how do we tell? You have to look at the ingredients. So look at the ingredients, and goodness, there's probably 40 to 50 code names for sugar these days. Look for any of those code names for sugar. So it could be cane syrup, it could be agave syrup, it could be honey, molasses, any of the OSE words like dextrose, maltose, sucrose, and a whole lot of other words. Now, even if it's organic, it's still sugar. Your body does not differentiate between organic sugar, added sugar, and conventional added sugar. So even if it's organic agave or organic honey, that's beautiful, but it's still added sugars, and you want to bring those down. And that is sugar added in manufacturing, which is why it's going to be listed in the ingredients and not broken out on the label. If you do not see any of those code words for sugar in the ingredients listing, then the sugar in the product is natural. Don't worry about it. Enjoy the food. Now, good news, a change is coming, although the food lobbyists keep managing to push it back. But the labels are coming, and the latest dates I heard today, I think, were depending on how much profit or revenue the food companies make. They have to implement these changes either by 2020 or 2021. So we still have some time before we see these changes. But I've seen it on a couple labels already, because some people realize that consumers, we want this information, and they're giving it to us. And if we see it, we're more likely to buy their product. So I applaud those companies. So on some food labels, and coming whenever, you will see a change to now have sugars and added sugars. So the new food labels are going to actually list added sugar grams, which makes you not have to put on your detective hat and go reading through all that really tiny print in the ingredients listing. So that's great news. We just don't know when it's coming. You also want to reduce your salt or your sodium in your diet. Now, I've done a series of videos on my YouTube channel on salt. I'm in the process of posting them. But the research is kind of mixed on this. Some people are salt sensitive, which means if they reduce the salt in their diet, they will see a corresponding reduction in blood pressure, which will reduce heart disease risk. But not everybody has that genetic makeup, so some people don't respond to that. And others, if they reduce salt, their blood pressure goes up. So you're going to have to see what happens for you. But for the majority of us, we eat probably 3 times the recommendation for salt. So we have a lot of salt in our diet. And that's because it's in convenience foods. It's in grab-and-go foods. It's in packaged processed foods. And it's in restaurant foods. So if you turn to these foods, eat out a lot, and don't do a lot of home cooking, then you probably have a lot of salt in your diet. And it might be something to look at bringing down. So in addition to the potential impact it might have on your blood pressure, salt can also influence your body weight, because the more salt you have in the diet, the more your body has to hold on to water to maintain that equilibrium, basically so your blood doesn't get too salty and your body tissues don't get too salty. So your body holds water, and that shows up on the scale. So a lot of people find if they drop their salt down to a more realistic health level, they will drop a few pounds without really changing anything else, because the body can let go of that water. So play with that if you're struggling with a couple of pounds. There is a minimum, though. You do need salt, but it's in everything, pretty much, natural food. So many people don't worry about not eating enough. So don't worry about that, because many of us eat way too much sodium or salt. So those are the 3 tips. So we've got add fiber, swap up your fats, and reduce your added sugars and salt. The last tip for heart healthy eating really is just focused on maintaining a healthy body weight. And I put that with nutrition because weight balance, well, it's dependent on a whole host of factors: genetics, weight history, your gut microbiome. We're learning more about that impact on weight. So there's much of it that may be not as easy for a lot of people to control, which I think we need to recognize. There is also a component of your weight that does come down to your energy balance, your calories in, calories out. So that's why I kind of put this with nutrition. Because if you are trying to change your weight and your body is set up in a way that it will let you make a big change to your weight, then nutrition is really where it's at. And it is all a game with the calories and the quality of food in your diet. So we want to pay attention to not only how much you are eating, but the quality of foods that you're eating can make a big impact on your weight as well. And as I said, there's a lot more that goes into weight management. That would be a whole nother series of videos. But that I'm just throwing in here as another tip for reducing your heart disease risk. So that's all I've got for you tonight. I am glad that you guys have joined me. I hope that you have found this informative and that it has inspired you to maybe make some changes and try out some new things to reduce your heart disease risk. It is still the #1 killer in our country, and I'm passionate about getting the word out there. So share this information with your loved ones and ask me any questions. I'll monitor this Facebook video feed after the fact. So if you've got any nutritions, post them and I'd be happy to answer them. You might even inspire another set of videos. So thank you for watching. It's been my pleasure. Follow me on YouTube for videos. I will be posting those. It's YouTube Alexia Lewis RD, or follow me on Facebook and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you so much.